What is up, guys? Team Ethos here with another video, and by the poll that I posted, it seems like the vote came out to be an Unchained deck profile. So here we are with our Unchained deck that we're going to be looking at and taking a deep dive into, as we do with every single deck that we post on the channel. But before we hop into the profile, if you guys are not subscribed already, make sure you go ahead and you smash that subscribe button, turn the notification bell on. Obviously, give the video a thumbs up. That's always helpful too. And leave a comment down below and let me know how you're doing. But let's go ahead and jump right on into the Unchained deck profile. All right, so we're going to take a look at the main deck now. To start things off, it's, in my opinion, fairly standard for my play style. I think that the list is fantastic. I love playing this deck, and I think it's pretty easy to learn how to play it. It's just very hard to master because there's a lot of timing things you have to take into consideration. But outside of that, it's pretty cool. So we'll start with the Unchained cards. We have 3 copies of Aruha. Aruha allows you to special summon itself from hand by popping a card on your own field. And one of the downsides to that, I guess you'd call it a downside, even though it really isn't, is that you can only special summon fiend monsters for the rest of the turn. But that's a very large part of your strategy, is summoning fiend monsters. So it doesn't really hurt you that much. And then when it's destroyed battle or card effect, you can summon an Unchained monster from your hand or deck, which is also very important. Then we have 3 copies of Rakea. Now, Rakea is a quick effect to pop one card you control. So let's say you set a card and you normal summon this, and your opponent like activates like a Book of Moon, just in this example. You can chain the effect to pop your back row and still get the possible special summon if your back row was an Unchained card. So that's pretty cool, pretty important too. Then we have 3 copies of Sarama. For a long time, I was only playing 2 of this, and I think now with the meta being the way that it is, you really have to be ready to like face the grind game, because a lot of the games that people play now are very grindy. They're not like, you know, these quick games. Some of them are, like, don't get me wrong, sometimes you set up full combo and you just go to the next game, but a lot of the games that I've been playing lately, it seems like there's a lot of thought process going into this over the course of several turns, so that's kind of important to note. But Sarama essentially is going to let you set an Unchained card from your grave and then destroy a card on your field, so you can always destroy the card that you set and trigger its effect, which is actually fantastic. It's pretty cool. That's like awesome. On top of that, its effect to like do the destruction of whatever card you set or another card on your field after you set, it doesn't lock you into fiends. So having the Sarama is actually extremely useful in this scenario, because the Sarama itself is not going to force you to stick to one particular strategy. You're going to be able to branch out from your fiends, which is actually very important. Then we have 2 Abominable Unchained Soul. Soul is a pop when he's special summoned onto the field, which obviously is pretty important with the Unchained stuff because he can be special summoned fairly easily. Then the other cool part is that if a card is destroyed in your field, you can special him from the graveyard. Or I'm sorry, I said that incorrectly. During the end phase, if this card is in the graveyard because it was destroyed, you can special summon it. But the other downside to that is that when it leaves the field, it goes to the bottom of the deck, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it's pretty good in the aspect that during the end phase, if it was destroyed, it just recurs itself. Like, that's absolutely crazy that it works that way. So keep in mind that Unchained Soul is a recurable card and it's a pop on the field, which is actually really, really disgusting. And the cool part about the destruction is that you have to discard a card, but it doesn't target. Like, not having a target is actually insane. Like, that's really, really good. So I really like Abominable Unchained Soul. It's a really good card. And then the other Unchained Soul that we play is Unchained Soul Disaster. This one, you only want to play one of it because you don't want to draw it. Like, drawing it actually isn't that good, but you can essentially target a card that your opponent controls, and you can use it as a link monster for one of your, like, Unchained link monsters, which is really, really good. And then if it's destroyed by battle or card effect, you can target an Unchained monster in your graveyard, accept him, and special summon it. That's actually pretty cool, too. And then his static effect that just kind of stays on the field is that he gains 300 attack for each Unchained card in your graveyard. So that's that's kind of basic. That one you don't really have to worry about too much. Usually he gets summoned in defense position because he does have a nice 3,000 booty, and he's not going to be on the field for long because you're going to use him to link off one of your opponent's monsters. But those are the Unchained monsters. We're going to go ahead and jump into the hand traps that I'm playing in the list. So we have 3 copies of Ash Blossom because it's the most basic hand trap, the most straightforward hand trap, and it really just puts in a lot of work, which is important in most matchups. Then we have 3 copies of Imperm. So I think a lot of people know that, you know, Imperm having a reprint in the Cyber Dark structure deck is fantastic for players who are playing on more of a budget, because you can pick, you know, the 3 decks up at $10 a piece, and then you just have a playset of Imperms on top of other portions of a structure deck, which is actually fantastic. So if you don't have Imperms yet, now is your prime time to get them. Like, go ahead and enjoy being a budget player, because this is what it's all about. But I picked Imperm over Valor because it plays around tactics, and I didn't want to deal with tactics that much, so I opted to stick with the Imperm. And then the Ash is, as I said, very straightforward. Don't really have to explain much there because it hits literally every deck in some way, shape, or form. And then the last hand trap that we play is 3 copies of Dimension Shifter. This card is absolute stones. I love this card. It just shuts off basically every single meta deck right now. Tri Brigade can't play if you drop it down. Dry Tri can't play if you drop it down. Like those 2 decks alone just automatically lose to it. Dragon Link also loses to it, which is crazy. I took Dragon Link to locals today, and I went X1. I ended up making top 4, which is really cool. I probably won't post that deck list for a while because people really didn't want me to post a Dragon Link deck from one of the polls that I posted. So we'll avoid the Dragon Link deck for a while. But Dimension Shifter just hurts every single meta deck, which is fantastic. And the cool part about the interaction with this and the Unchained monsters, because people are probably thinking, who, you know, may be interested in picking up this deck for the first time, they may think, well, if you play Dimension Shifter, how do you get your Unchained stuff to trigger? Like, it's getting destroyed. How does that even work? So the Unchained cards read that you don't have to have them be sent to graveyard. They just have to be destroyed. So they can be destroyed and banished, and their effects still go off, which is insane because your opponent can't even call by them at that point because they're already banished. That's actually a very, very important portion of the deck. So 3 Shifter actually does not hurt your deck whatsoever. Those are all the monsters / hand traps, though. We're going to hop on over to the spell cards here, in which we play 3 copies of Abomination's Prison. This is a searcher for an Unchained card, which is fantastic. In addition to that, if you know, it's on the field and it's destroyed, you know, it has to be set. That's one of the most important parts. If the set card on the field is destroyed, you can special summon an Unchained monster from your deck. So like, that's just a free Unchained summon if you open up 2. Opening up 2 of this means you search for an Unchained monster, you set this, and then you pop it with the Unchained monster, and then you basically have your full combo. Then we have 3 copies of Pot of Prosperity. Now, if you don't want to pick up Prosperities because they're over $100 a piece, you can pick up Extravagances because they're only like $30 a piece, and you'll be saving yourself a significant amount of money. I like Prosperity. A lot of people right now are going back and forth on the debate between Prosperity and Extravagance as to which one is better. I personally enjoy playing Prosperity a lot more. I don't like playing Extravagance in any deck at all. I just think that the card is too RNG for your extra deck, and like, you don't want that. You don't want to like play games with your extra deck and then not be able to play because you just banished 6 cards from it and now your extra deck is garbage. So I think that Pot of Prosperity is significantly better because you can pick away what pieces you would like to go ahead and get rid of that may not be necessary to your strategy or just less important to whatever matchup you're in. So the Prosperity, in my opinion, is better, but if you are playing on a budget, sure, go ahead and play the Extravagances. Those are all the spell cards that we play, though. Pretty small spell lineup, which is nice. That's probably how it should be. But let's hop on over to the traps now. And we do play 3 copies of Escape of the Unchained. This basically, you target an Unchained monster you control and another card on the field. You destroy both of them. It also has the same effect as Abomination's Prison, where if the set card in the field is destroyed, you can special summon an Unchained from your deck. That's actually very important because basically if you open up any of the Unchained spells or traps with an Unchained monster, you're basically able to go full combo, which is fantastic. Like, it's just really, really good. I absolutely love this card. It's a free pop. And basically you just get to float too because you're popping one of your Unchained monsters. So this can actually be 2 pops technically, because you can pop your Unchained monster to pop their card, and then you can summon Abomination or Abominable, and then the Abomination can go ahead and pop another card in the field. So you basically get 2 pops out of 1 card, which is ridiculous. It's just really good. Like, there's no other way of describing it. Then we play 3 copies of Chamber. So Chamber is like a Monster Reborn, which is really, really good too. Like, there are times where you can bring back one of the Link monsters, and then you can go ahead and use this effect during your opponent's turn and Link off during their turn again, which is really, really sweet. And obviously, like Escape and Abomination, Chamber has the same effect. If it's set and it's popped, then you get to float into an Unchained monster from your deck. That's actually very, very important. But moving on to the rest of the trap cards that we play, we have 3 copies of Torrential Tribute, because this card just helps our strategy. Like, this card is crazy. So you got to play the Torrentials. Like, this card is just too good not to be playing right now in a deck like this, especially where you're just going to float all of your resources anyways. It doesn't even matter that you're blowing up your board. Like, Torrential is just going to help you in the long run. Then this is the one card that's interchangeable in this deck. It's 3 copies of Ice Dragon's Prison. I almost wanted to have this be Needle Sealings, because Needle Sealing is really good, or Solemn Strike, like one or the other. But I opted to go with the Ice Dragon's Prison for the sake of the video, because right now I'm seeing a very large uptick in the use of Dragon Link. I think a lot of people are starting to catch on to the fact that the deck is the best deck of the format, like hands down best deck of the format. It's just so good. People are like, oh well, you know, you got Drytron with all the negations. It's like, yeah, but your Dragon Link deck is just so much better. It's more consistent than Drytron too, which is insane. So I felt the Ice Dragons was a pretty good meta call. But like I said, you could play Needle Sealings, you could play Solemn Strike, you could insert literally whatever trap card you prefer to play if you don't want to play Ice Dragon's Prisons. Just fully up to you, but I thought Ice Dragon was pretty good. Then the last card in the entire deck that we play, 1 Imperial Order, because the deck doesn't play a lot of spell cards. We play 6 total spell cards. We play 3 Abomination and 3 Pot of Prosperity. So, like, you're not going to be hurt by the fact that you can't play spell cards. So Imperial Order is actually extremely helpful towards your strategy. But that wraps up the main deck. We're going to go ahead and jump on over to our extra deck and take a look at what we're special summoning out. Alrighty, so now we're moving on to our extra deck, and the extra deck is cool for a number of reasons. We do play a lot of duplicates, which is cool, and I think that the synergy that it has with the strategy of the deck just kind of is this little perfect sense of harmony. Like, I just love this extra deck. Like, the extra deck feels so comfortable. It works with your prosperity. It just works overall to assist you in progressing your game state for the better. So we have 3 copies of Unchained Soul of Rage. So Rage is kind of like IP Masquerena, but instead of like using your monsters, you get to go ahead and use this and a face-up special summon monster your opponent controls, and you get to link summon a dark monster, which is fantastic because you can make Nightmare Unicorn. That's actually very, very relevant, being able to do that. Keep in mind too, it is during your opponent's main phase. Like, that's something that you will have to keep note of, is that it's not during your battle phase, not during your main phase. This is strictly during their main phase. Could be main phase 2 or main phase 1, doesn't matter which one. The other effect of this is that if it's destroyed, you know, while it's on the field and sent to the graveyard, well, just destroyed, I'm sorry, not sent to the graveyard, but if it's destroyed by battle or card effect, you can target a fiend monster in your graveyard and add it to your hand. So you can recur one of your Unchained monsters, which is pretty insane. So if you have Abominable Unchained Soul in your grave and another Unchained card, and you like have this get destroyed by an opponent's card, you can go ahead and do Chainlink 1 Abominable to summon itself during the end phase, and then Chainlink 2 Unchained Soul to grab an Unchained monster. And then when your Abominable gets summoned during the end phase, you can go ahead and discard the Unchained card that you added and pop a card, which is pretty cool. And I'm sorry, I misspoke there, but the Abominable triggers in the end phase. It doesn't trigger immediately. So that's why Rage is really good, because it's a link monster that uses one of your opponent's monsters for another link summon. Like, that's just disgusting. Then we have 3 copies of Unchained Soul of Anguish. So this is similar to Rage with using your opponent's monster for Link Summon. However, you're doing it during your turn, during your main phase, which is important to note. But that part, it's not a bad thing necessarily. You just, you can use your Unchained cards during your turn to go ahead and make this. Then you use one of your opponent's cards and you can go into a multitude of Link 4 monsters that we will obviously get to and cover. But the other cool part about Unchained Soul of Anguish is that it has a similar effect to Rage, where if it's destroyed, you can add a Fiend from your grave to your hand, which is very, very sweet. Like, that's just a really good effect. So Anguish is fantastic in that regard. He also has what I consider good Link arrows. Like, this is how Decode Talker started when Links first came out. It's just the basic Link 3 arrows, which I think this setup is fantastic. And then he's a 2400 beater, which is also pretty cool and good to note. Then the last Unchained Link monster we play is 2 Abomination. This card has so many different uses, and it's so powerful, being able to pop multiple cards in your opponent's field over the course of a turn, and he's just got a huge attack stat. Like, this card is crazy, absolutely crazy. This was played in Dragon Link for a while because of how good this card was. You'd use like Dillingerous Dragon and some other cards to go into your Abomination. But yeah, this card is disgusting, absolutely disgusting, being able to pop cards. I'm not even going to explain it because, like, a lot of people have seen this card before, and obviously you guys can read the text box if you have to read it. Some of the cards I want to explain and go more in depth and like talk about them, but I feel that Abomination being a multiple card pop is enough of an explanation for everyone to get the point. So Abomination is fantastic. Then for our other supporting Link monsters, I play 2 Nightmare Unicorn. You can always get rid of one off of Prosperity if you want to. If you want to keep both of them, then obviously keep both of them. But I think using one for Prosperity is a decent play, and most people know that Unicorn, when it's summoned, is just going to go ahead and discard a card to shuffle a card in the field, which is an interruption. So if your opponent has 2 cards on the field, you can use your Rage to get rid of one of them, and then you use the Unicorn to get rid of the other. So that's actually pretty sweet. Then we play 1 copy of Topologic Trisbana, because getting rid of back row is obviously important. There are going to be times where this comes up and it just steals a game for you. Could be by burn damage too, because if you banish your opponent's cards and you burn them for the burn damage and then you go into time, this could very well win you some games in time. So keep in mind, Trisbana is a disgusting card. Absolutely disgusting. Then for Link Force, we have 1 Topologic Zeroboros. This boy gains some stats for your banished cards, which is pretty good considering we play Dimension Shifter. Like, that's actually something that can come up frequently. And then obviously his field banish is also fantastic. Like, this card is disgusting in that respect, being able to get rid of the entire board. And then when he comes back, his stats are just gigantic. Absolutely gigantic. So you gotta love Zeroboros. You gotta respect it too. Card's just great. And then the last Link 4 that we play is, of course, 1 access code, because you can use your Soul of Anguish to go into the access code by using your opponent's monster. And then you can banish the Anguish for a pop with access code Talker's effect, which is pretty nuts. I don't feel it's necessary to explain this too much. I used to play a second one a while back, but I got rid of my second one because the price tag on them is just ridiculous. And I just said, why am I holding on to 2 of this card when you really only need 1? So we just play the 1 access code. And then the last card that we play in the extra deck is 2 copies of Dingirsu. So this comes up every once in a while. Usually I get rid of one of these off of Prosperity every single time. But essentially you can overlay 2 Abominables, or your Abominable, and then you could also overlay your copy of Unchained Soul Disaster. So like, you just need 2 level 8s, and then you get a free send that is a non-targeting send. So keep in mind, that's actually really good. And then you can protect your cards from being destroyed. So if you were to like flip a Torrential Tribute, you can just avoid the destruction of your cards, and then your opponent's cards go instead, which is pretty disgusting, not gonna lie. But that is the extra deck. We're going to go ahead and hop on over to the side deck and see what we put in to go ahead and counter the fancy schmancy meta that's running around right now. So let's go ahead and take a look. Okay, so now we're moving on to our side deck. Side deck is fairly basic, but I try and cater the side deck towards a little bit of all of the meta. I try to make sure that it's not, you know, leaning towards whatever my locals has as a vast majority of decks, which is why I change my deck lists a lot, because what I post online typically is catered to larger general events rather than what I know people are going to play at my locals. And even then, knowing what people play at my locals is tricky, because usually we have well over 20 people every single locals, easily over 20 people. I think today was like 22 people, which was kind of a low number for what I'm used to going there. But looking at the side deck for the monsters, we do play some more hand traps. We play Droll and Lockbird, which is really good against a multitude of decks. Obviously, Drytron is the big one. Like, being able to drop Droll against Drytron is crazy. Like, that's just something to keep in mind, is that, you know, your opponent does their search and now they can't search anymore. Well, what do? They pass their turn. That's literally all they do. Then the other hand trap that we play is 3 Nibiru, the rogue deck killer, as I like to call it. It's also just a really good overall card against a lot of the meta too, because a lot of the decks, they do end up doing 5 summons before they can put a negate out. One of the only exceptions to that is Dragon Link, because what happens with Dragon Link is that they go ahead and they make the heavenly spheres, and when they summon out spheres, if you Nibiru them, then they can just keep playing because they get the special summon from deck off of spheres being tributed from Nibiru. But Nibiru is still, regardless, a phenomenal hand trap, so keep that in mind. Those are the hand traps that we play, though, in the side. Moving on to what I can only describe as your greatest going second engine. This is everything that you're going to need to go second. 3 copies of Dark Ruler No More, which is going to shut off all of your opponent's monsters' effects. That pesky Drytron board that you can't play around now becomes completely irrelevant, which is fantastic. Same thing with the Dragon Link board. You go ahead and you just cut off the Dragon Link board, which is absolutely nuts. Then we have 3 copies of Lightning Storm. This card is going to gain even more popularity with the release of Sword Soul, because you can just go ahead and wipe the monsters out on Sword Soul's board, and then they don't have much to do. That's really the cool part about this, is that they're not going to have a lot of options to go ahead and play the game. So Lightning Storm is a fantastic card. Obviously against back row decks, it's phenomenal too. You just got to be careful you don't get hit with Imperial Order, which, who knows, depending on upcoming ban lists, could mean a possible ban of Imperial Order, even though I don't think that it needs to be banned, but that's just a personal opinion that we will not get into. Then the last card that we side is 3 copies of Evenly Matched. This kind of coincides with the Lightning Storm and the Dark Ruler, hence why I said the greatest going second engine possible is just having those 9 cards, because depending on the deck, you can obviously play around just about everything. So Evenly does a whole lot of work for you, and that's one of the reasons that I love the card so much, is that you can go ahead and just basically blow out back row decks, because their Imperial Order does literally nothing to you. Like, their Imperial Order is a very useless card against Evenly Matched. Like, it just doesn't hurt at all, and then they're left on 1 card that's probably not going to win them the game. So Evenly is a fantastic card. Gotta love it, gotta respect it. One of the best cards to ever be created for sure. But that brings us essentially to a close for the deck profile. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to show you guys a combo that you can do. It's pretty basic. I was referring to it throughout the main deck profile about, you know, opening combo, whatever combo is. And I'm going to go ahead and showcase that to you so you can see what the combo just exactly entails. So let's go ahead and jump on into the combo. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and discuss combo here real quick for this deck, and just go over essentially how to do the combo and what you're really looking for in your opening hand. So you either need a copy of your Aruha, a copy of your Rakea, either one of these, or you need to have a copy of Abomination, either one of these 3, and then you could have any kind of Unchained trap, or you could have another copy of Abomination, which I also mentioned. I'm going to leave this one in deck actually, and we're going to go ahead and use Escape, because Escape is really good, and we're going to go ahead and use the Aruha. So we're going to be using these 2 cards to essentially explain the combo and how it works, and go over the basics of this entire combo. It's very, very quick, very easy, and you won't get Nibiru'd, which is also fantastic. So what you're going to do is you're going to set your Escape from the Unchained. You'll then use Aruha's effect to special summon itself by popping a card on your field. So you pop the Escape, Escape then triggers, and you can summon from your deck an Unchained card, which is obviously ridiculous. So in some cases, depending on what you want to do, so like this is one summon, and then if you summon the Abominable, then that's two, and then you can go ahead and obviously just link off into Rage. But the better play is to go ahead and summon Sarama, which will be your second summon. Then you use Sarama's effect to set your Escape, and then you get to pop your Aruha. And then Aruha will trigger Engrave to special summon your Abominable. Keep in mind that is 3 summons. And then you can go ahead and you can link these two into your copy of Rage. And then from there, you can literally just pass your turn. Now you have 2 options here. You could either link your opponent's card with the Rage, or you can go ahead and you can pop your opponent's card, which is also acceptable. Like it does a very similar thing. You know, that's one of the benefits of it. Now, if you open up this with the other trap, your chamber, the crazy part about opening this with chamber is that you can use this as a link, and then you can also use this to bring back one of your other cards, like your Aruha, and then you can escape the Aruha way to pop one of their cards, and then you could summon an Abominable from your deck and then get another pop. So it's all Nibiru proof though, because it's only 4 summons. So basically you open up either the Aruha or the Rakea, and you open up one of the traps or the spell, which is Abomination Prison. So you have a couple routes of going into it, but it allows you to do some pretty cool interactions and disruptions, which is obviously fantastic. It's the cool part about this deck, is that there's just a lot of interesting interaction points that not many people know how to deal with. So the deck just picks up a lot of interesting wins because your opponent doesn't know how to play against your deck. They literally don't know what to do. But hopefully that was informative enough. I know it was a pretty quick guide. There's obviously a lot more technical play that goes into this deck, and there's a lot to talk about with it. But I've done that before. I've talked about how the deck functions. I just wanted to show an updated list as to how I play, seeing that won the poll of which deck you guys wanted to see me go ahead and profile next. I started off the poll with whether you guys wanted to see Dragon Link, whether you wanted to see Shadal Invoke Dogmatica, or if you wanted to see a Rogue deck. Rogue deck won, so I gave a list of 4 Rogue decks, and Unchained won by a small margin. It was actually a very close poll between Unchained, Altergeist, and Dinosaur, and then Generator Numeron just did not get many votes at all, despite me loving that deck. That deck is super fun to play, but you know, we went with the Unchained deck because that's what ended up getting the most votes within 24 hours. That's how I'm going to conduct all of my polls, is that within 24 hours of the poll being posted, I will go ahead and decide whatever the winner is at that point. So keep your eyes out obviously for more polls in the future, but the next profile I might do is probably either going to be Altergeist or Dinos, so you guys will have to give me probably another week to get everything situated. As you know, I usually do a weekly video release. Sometimes you'll get 2 videos a week depending on my schedule, but currently as it stands, getting 1 video out a week fits my schedule perfectly. But hopefully this was informative for everyone. You guys got to learn a little bit about the Unchained deck if you guys don't know how Unchained works already. If you already knew and you're just returning to watch me do another Unchained deck profile, even better. Love it. Absolutely fantastic. Glad you guys are sticking around. I know I have a lot of people who like watching my Unchained lists, and they think they're fantastic. I looked at a few lists online. I didn't stick with any of them in particular. I just kind of floated around with a few lists and ideas, and then I went ahead and I tossed my ideas together into one deck, and it's pretty good stuff. But as I always say, make sure you guys are subscribed, hit the notification bell so you know when I upload cool and awesome content just like this one, and obviously make sure you hit the thumbs up button too, because it helps the channel out a lot. And for right now, this is Team Yugi Fails signing out.